Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hello and welcome to mini episode 362 of Real Life Ghost Stories. And I have 3 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from the 3rd of May 2024. And story number 1 comes from Stephanie. There is one unexplainable event I experienced 2 months after my eldest brother unexpectedly passed away. The others are actually more about unsettling dreams that I felt like were real. I haven't had another event involving my brother or bad dreams like them since, but they remain memorable to me to this day. It was around July the 4th of the year 2000. My brother had passed away in May of that same year. My partner at the time was living in his grandmother's basement, and I was staying overnight with him. We had bought a July the 4th cake with sunglasses as a topper one night, but had removed the glasses so we could cut the cake and eat some. We left the sunglasses on the kitchen table with the lenses face down and the arms of the glasses sticking straight up. The arms were stiff, by the way. They wouldn't fold down on their own without someone manipulating them. I was getting ready to go to work the next morning and I was in the kitchen. The cake and the glasses were just as we had left them on the table. I was mentally talking to my brother when all of a sudden one of the arms of the sunglasses just slowly bent all the way down, right before my eyes. I was stunned. I just can't explain it. My late brother was born in July of 1966. I'm still not really sure what to make of the experience I had that morning, but I'll never forget it. So the first dream started with me in my own bed in my actual bedroom, as if it were really happening. I was suddenly aware of a blonde-haired woman in bright red robes floating in the air beside my bed. She was trying to tell me something, but I couldn't hear what she was saying, as she was also being physically pulled away from me. I wasn't afraid of her, but she looked extremely real and very concerned as she tried to speak to me. The second dream also involved me in my own actual bed and bedroom again. The same blonde woman in red was there beside my bed, except this time she was just smirking at me as if to imply, "I told you so." Then she was pulled away again just like before. The third and last dream involved me waking up again in my own bed and in my own bedroom to a bluish black bird sitting on my chest. A raven? A crow? I'm not even sure, but it really felt like that bird was there because it was right in my face. I'm not quite sure what any of these dreams meant, but they did happen. Like I said earlier, I haven't had anything like them since. I think these stories of things happening, so, Stephanie is having a conversation with her brother in her head and then this inexplicable event happens. I think those stories are really beautiful. And it is a lovely reminder that our loved ones who have passed away can come and give us a kind of a nod and a wink in unlikely ways and in unlikely times. And I'm sure there are lots of people listening who will gain comfort from that. And in relation to your dreams, or, dreams in inverted commas, I think it's very interesting that it was the same woman in a red dress both times. And in both times she was in sort of like different guises. In one she was floating and was really concerned and she was trying to speak to you. And in the second dream she was there beside your bed, and this time she was sort of smirking like, "I told you so." I wonder what happened in your life. I know you probably don't remember now, but I wonder what happened in your life in the interim of those dreams for her to come and try and warn you, and then the second dream to be like, "I told you so." I wonder, did something happen? And I'm sure if there's anybody who does dream analysis listening, that having a dream, even if it is a dream, about a raven or a crow must mean something, right? And a quick Google on dreamglossary.com says that dreaming about a raven apparently means joyful news. And story number 2 comes from Jayden. And Jayden included a trigger warning to say that their story deals with suicide. A little backstory first. I have always been interested and open to the paranormal. As a kid and teenager, I would often watch ghost hunter shows and sneak into suspected haunted houses around the outskirts of town. Like you do. But I never once saw or heard anything I deemed as ghostly or otherwise. Bummer. So to say that I am a hotspot for ghostly happenings is far from the truth, and I'm always looking to debunk and explain things away. Shortly after I turned 18 in May 2013, I married my then 24-year-old husband, Josh, going on 11 years. Josh had 3 brothers, Steve, Andrew and his little brother Matt, and a large family out east. After we married, we had planned to fly out east together in July so that he could show me off to his family at the big reunion that was planned. This was meant to be a happy time. 2 weeks before we left, however, we got a call at 4 a.m. It was Josh's mom. Matt had hung himself in the basement garage of his eldest brother's house that he lived in earlier that morning. Myself, my husband and his family were devastated. Matt was only a couple of years older than me, and even though I'd never met him face to face, I had talked to him on the phone and was eager to meet him. Fast forward to a few days later. I was introduced to my husband's whole family at a funeral for his little brother. Not the best way to meet your relatives. I will never forget the overwhelming sadness that I felt in that event. Being empathetic, I could not only feel my own sorrow, that of my husband's, but also everyone else's as a collective. It was truly palpable. We've never been through anything harder than that, and I pray we never will again. The night following Matt's funeral, Josh and I went to bed on the pull-out couch located in the basement living area at the eldest brother's house. The very same. As we lay there, I couldn't shake the feeling how wrong it was that we were trying to sleep not 20 feet away from where Matt took his last breath only days before. As the house calmed down for the night, and the dog upstairs stopped moving, Josh and I finally closed our eyes and stayed silent as we tried to get some rest. About 10 minutes in, all is quiet. When we hear the familiar click of a doorknob turning. The sound had come from where Matt's bedroom was in the basement, adjacent to the garage. I controlled my breathing, holding my breath as long as I could. I began to strain my hearing as I tried to tell Josh's breathing apart from my own. We lay silent for a few more moments, when I heard the soft sound of bare feet stick and slowly walk across the wooden basement floor. You know the sound. Only the sound of feet. No creaking of the floorboards to signify a weight bearing down on them. By now, I'm holding my breath for what felt like an eternity, as the steps stop right next to the bed where Josh is lying. I could feel as if someone was watching us. My heart began pounding, and I was wide awake in a cold sweat. Unmoving after a moment or two, I hear the footsteps again as they seem to walk to the other end of the living area where another couch resides. The footsteps stop and were replaced with the sound of light breathing, as if someone was sleeping on the couch 10 feet away. My husband snores like a chainsaw, and he was silent while all of this took place. Lying next to me, I can hear Josh's breathing in unison with mine. It is now that I open my eyes to look across to the couch, and nothing. The breathing continues, but there's no one on the couch, in the basement or otherwise. I turn over and shove my head under the covers and force myself to sleep after being on such high alert. It wasn't until the next morning when I finally asked my husband, "Did you notice anything last night after we laid down?" He responds with, "Do you mean the footsteps and the breathing?" This is my only proof that it was not a dream or hallucination produced by stress. My husband and I believe wholeheartedly that it was Matt checking in on us. Upon walking up the stairs, we noticed that his bedroom door was half open. Knowing it was shut the night before, we kept this to ourselves. We closed the door and did our best to spend the remaining time we had to be with family and distract one another. After returning home, a couple of weeks go by and I have a dream. In the dream, myself and the family are in the funeral parlour for Matt's viewing, only he isn't there. No casket, no chairs. I recall the dream starting with looking at a candle on the wall in a mirrored case, and it began to shake. Everyone went outside to the grass in the yard behind the building and stood in a circle smiling. There Matt was, in the centre of the circle of the family members, smiling back, looking all around him at the familiar faces wishing him peace and longing to be with him a little while longer. Matt looks at me from afar as I walk up to the circle. He walks over, places his hands on my shoulders and says to me, "It was nice to meet you," before wrapping me in a big hug. I woke up from this dream crying and feeling his arms still around me. Never before have I felt anything from a dream. I called Josh's mom and told her about it, truly believing it was his last goodbye to me. To this day, one dream that will always stay with me. Josh and I found out we were expecting our first child a couple of weeks after that. We named him Echo Leon Matthew, for his uncle that he never got to meet but is ever present. We now have 2 beautiful babies and Matt is in our hearts always. To end on a happier note with my second story, it's worth mentioning that in the summer of 2022, I won my family's fishing derby and was lucky enough to bring home the travelling trophy that's been making its way around for the last 20 years or so. Suddenly, I have a ghostie playing with my daughter's toys, walking around my son's room, moving things in our basement as we renovate, and haunting my bathroom to unroll my toilet paper. Seriously? Have you ever tried to re-roll toilet paper? It ain't fun. I'm pretty sure it's one of my late jokester great uncles, but who knows? All I know is my dad won it last summer in 2023, and he has since seen an old hag walking, floating in their hallway when he gets up in the middle of the night to pop into the restroom. I don't think it's a coincidence, but he might not try so hard to win next year. Jayden, I'm so sorry for your family's loss. I mean, losing somebody is hard, and in any circumstances, and losing somebody to suicide just adds layers of complexity to it. And it sounds, to me anyway, like Matt took the time to see you guys one last time when you were staying in that basement bedroom. Maybe he wanted to just look out for you guys, look over you guys before he passed on to wherever you go after you're gone. And that dream was absolutely beautiful, to see him there and to be able to have that moment with him to say it was nice to meet you. Kind of also verifying what you had experienced previously in the basement, that in his world, that was his chance to meet you, and this sort of confirmed it. And finally, get that trophy out of your house. Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. You know? How is that thing haunted? Why is that happening? And rolling up toilet paper is very annoying after it's been unrolled. So that's a very mischievous, maybe evil haunting.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
And our final story today comes from Brick. I'm sensitive, meaning I experience the paranormal, specifically spirits, on a regular basis. I see, hear and feel them. My first experience that I remember was as a toddler in my crib. A tall, dark, almost shadow man with a top hat and a cape would stand at my door or rush by quickly, giving me a sense of calm and comfort. I knew he was there for my safety. But that's not the story I want to tell this time. My parents have always lived in the Midwest in the same house I was raised in, not born as I am adopted. That being said, when I would come to them with tales of my experiences, I was most commonly brushed off with, "You have such an active imagination," because they didn't experience those things and weren't sure what else to make of it. When I was about 8 or 9, my friend N and I were running around behind my parents' house at the edge of the golf course that they lived next to. There was a wooded strip of trees or brush, and beyond it was the neighbour's extended yard. Usually the only thing to see was a tiny shed and small burn pile that I had never seen lit. From my parents' backyard there is no wooded strip, so you can clearly see the comings and goings of any big activity. But once on the golf course it is thicker and a bit harder to see through. This day, N and I see something beyond the trees. Where the burn pile usually sits is a huge pile of stuff. It looked like someone had just dumped all the contents of a 2-bedroom family home into a pile. Furniture, toys, home decor. There was a huge panda stuffed bear, the kind you would win at the fair. And once we started looking through the pile, we found basketball and baseball cards. This happened around 96, 97-ish, and these cards were anywhere from 1989 to 1995. They had all the greats of the time, including Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, my favourite, so we were stoked. I mean, this was basically a trash pile of some sort, and while we thought it was weird that we hadn't seen anyone then or before, we decided to at least go and grab the cards. How else were we to be believed? It started to get late, so we headed to our respective houses, and I excitedly showed my dad the cards and told him about the strange pile of items. He didn't believe me, of course, but I begged him to come with me the next morning when the sun rose to check it out, and he agreed. We woke up early and took a walk out there, and there was absolutely nothing to see. No pile of anything, but that small burn pile of sticks. No panda bear, no furniture, and no tracks of any sort of vehicle that could have moved all of that out of there overnight. So much for convincing my dad, even with the basketball cards, which I still have to this day. And that's not where it ends. I talked to N about it and he was straight up freaked out. We brushed it off, as kids do, but it was only a few months later when that area was the scene of another strange event that we both witnessed. It was the middle of the day and N and I were running around on the edge of the golf course by the wooded strip. We, of course, weren't supposed to be playing on the golf course, so being aware of adults was important, and in the wooded strip I saw something move. I hit N on the arm and he froze. It was a shadow man with a shadow dog walking through the thick brush and trees as though they didn't exist, like walking on a clear path. We stood there as we watched them disappear into the woods at the end of the strip. We confirmed to each other we had each seen what the other had and got the fuck right out of there. I opted not to tell anyone about this because honestly it was kind of scary. The next day, I had to go by myself to look at where they were walking to confirm I saw this man and dog walk clean through the brush. And sure enough, it was thick and prickly. There is no way that we saw a live human and dog. Then, something caught the light, and as I looked up, I could not believe what I was seeing. A purple dog collar hung on the branch, smack dab in the middle of the brush where they had been walking. Intentionally hung. I picked it up. It was worn, a bit dirty, a regular buckle collar with no tags. I took it home and put it on a stuffed animal pound puppy that I had. I'll have to confirm when I'm home next if it's still there somewhere in my old closet. As I get older, I began to understand my gifts, my sensitivities, and harness them as well as put boundaries up. I did an outdoor meditation one night about 5 years ago near the edge of my parents' property, and I saw something non-human where that burn pile was so many years ago. It was taller than the trees and pitch black. On top of its head was a bit like the top of a castle with jutting squares. The message was that this was a portal and it was not to be messed with. That is the last time that I have inquired or ventured into that area. Truly, my heart is beating hard recounting these events. I had a feeling that I needed to share these particular stories, so if I ever have another itch to write in with another of my ghost stories, I won't hesitate. I mean, please don't hesitate. That's what we're here for. We're all ears. And frustratingly, I feel like my answer to everything at the moment is just time slip. But is that what happened here? Like, was the burn pile all of the stuff that came from, like, as you said, like a 2-bedroom family home? Do you know what I mean? Furniture, toys, home decor. At one point, that was all there. It was burnt on the burn pile, and that was the burn pile that you saw. But for some reason or somehow, you saw some sort of time slip where the burn pile was as it was, all of the stuff from a family home, and that's how you ended up with the basketball cards. What a wonderfully strange thing to happen. But it's also a wonderfully inconsequential thing, which I think kind of adds to the allure of it. Like, you're just a couple of kids who took some basketball cards. It wasn't life-changing, it wasn't history-altering, it was just a couple of kids taking some stuff that they thought was cool. But then the burn pile, it goes back to being a burn pile the next day. And I know that some people might be thinking, well, maybe they just burnt it. But if you've got a huge pile of stuff to burn, like, it will take a long time to burn. And guaranteed by the next morning, that will still be at the very least smouldering away. And you then went on to see a shadow man walking his shadow dog, as though the brush and the thicket wasn't even there. So, like, maybe walking a path that they had previously walked. And maybe your dream was right. Like, maybe that was some sort of liminal space. You know, maybe, I hate using the word portal. It's so Ghost Adventures. But maybe it was some sort of liminal space, some sort of portal, some sort of place where, you know, the veil is thinner. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Stephanie, Jayden and Brick for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from the 3rd of May 2024. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/Real Life Ghost Stories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.